What do people 65 plus need to know about Medicare to avoid late enrollment penalties? Let's start there.
A late enrollment penalty, as you talked about, Kelly, that happens when you don't apply for Medicare when you should, right? So you can avoid late enrollment penalties by checking in at 65 with someone who can help you with your Medicare to say, do I need to enroll into Medicare at 65? Typically, many people are going to take Medicare Part A. Medicare Part A, that's the part that you've paid for your entire career, right? Or your spouse has paid into, depending on what type of work you did, whether it was in the home or out of the home. If you worked your 40 quarters or your spouse worked their 40 quarters, you're going to get Medicare Part A for free. That's the hospitalization portion. Medicare Part B and Part D are where the late enrollment penalties can come into play. And it basically means if you didn't enroll for Medicare Part B when you should have, and so that could be when you turn 65 or when you leave creditable employer coverage, that you could incur those. And so it's just important to note, is your group employer plan creditable coverage, right? Do you have 20 plus benefits eligible employees, et cetera? There's all kinds of things that kind of go into that mixture. But if you are turning 65, just review Medicare with someone.
Yeah.
Make certain that you have an understanding of what's coming, what's next to avoid those late enrollment penalties. Typically, those are going to be fairly low cost if you let it go, a couple of months. And usually they're not even going to start assessing those until you've gone 6 months or more where you're Medicare eligible and not enrolled. The biggest one I've seen recently was, an advisor partner of ours reached out and said, hey, we've got a client who we just found out hasn't enrolled in Medicare and they're 7 years past their eligibility date.
No. Oh, gosh.
And the thing about late enrollment penalties is, the bummer about them is the late enrollment penalty on Part D and Part B is they never go away. You don't get to pay them off. They just stick around forever. And so important to make certain you review and understand what those are.
No kidding.
You only get those if you should be on Medicare and you don't have creditable coverage elsewhere. So typically that's going to be if you don't have employer coverage and you're 65 or older, you need to be on Medicare.
And you can even start looking at it before 65, right? Is it 3 months, Cole?
Yeah. So the initial enrollment period, I think, is what you're referencing, Kelly. If you are not intending to work past 65 and continue to have employer coverage, or your spouse has employer coverage that you can be on, you can start actually enrolling for Medicare Parts A and B 3 months before your 65th birthday or 3 months after. So you've got a 6-month window that's called your IEP, or your initial enrollment period.